whoever that was. All right, we're recording. Does anybody need a physical copy of the take-home part of the exam? Physical copy. Physical copy. Yes. There we go. Oh, who remembers the day? What's the day? Is it the 11th? The 10th. Thank you. The 10th as well. That's right. The 10th.
So glad I caught that.
December 10th is when we're going to come in. You're going to turn this part in, and then we're going to do the in-class parts, which I'm just about done writing, and I'll give you a heads up as to what's going to be on them. I might even throw what's going to be on them in the wrap-up email tomorrow or today, depending on when I do it, or I might just wait. We'll see. We'll see how. We'll see. That might be too much information too soon. Maybe we'll just wait a little bit on that. This you can go ahead and start knocking out. Nothing in here is the remainder of the class is just financial literacy. It's all money math. There's no money math on this, on the take-home part. I'll put money math on the in-class part, because we'll have just done 3 weeks of it. But not on the take-home part. This is all the stuff we had just finished as of last. So, anybody else need a copy? A bunch of you had it. Isabel, you need one? No. You got it. All right. So, I'm curious, only because I was way off. When I asked you all to guesstimate what the University of Washington's inflation rate was, because you calculated in question 2 that the U.S. inflation was 3.6%, or just say 4%, so it's 3.6% to 1 decimal. What did you all guess in number 4 was, because you know how it went to $140,000, a hell of a lot of money, right? What did you guess was the inflation rate in number 4? 9, 6, 11%, right? 7, and then what did it end up being? 4.5, something like that, 4.6. Isn't that crazy? 1 percentage point different than the U.S. was. But that resulted in almost $100,000 extra dollars over 90 years. And that's what makes exponential growth of money so hard to process mentally. Money doesn't grow linearly. You don't get 5% this year, then 5% next year, then 5% the year after, then 5% the year after. For years, when I started working here, I'm not even sure if it's changed. I was on negotiations for years here at COCC. I was on 12 years ago the last time, 12 years ago. Our pay scale at COCC was linear, which meant every year we got the same dollar amount added to our pay. And the first thing I said when I went in there was, as soon as we do this, we're behind on inflation. Because inflation doesn't add money, it multiplies by a percent. And the other side would not listen to me, even though their pay scale was exponential. So it was incredible. It was one of the nastiest fights of my life, trying to get them to understand the math that we're doing right now. And we're going to continue to do today. It's hard to mentally process money growth, which is why we're going to learn, again today, we learned a formula last time with the inflation rate formula. The formula we're going to look at today looks exceptionally similar to that one. Except we're not going to talk about the prices of things getting more expensive over time. We're going to look at what happens if you dump money into a bank account and let it sit there. Same idea, though. Same idea with exponential growth. And we'll see. We'll play with it today. That's all we're going to do today.
It's still like double. So
Say that again.
4 years. It's still like double. So like the 2,500.
Yeah. 58,000.
Like
Oh, it's almost triple, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, 2.5 times.
Yeah.
2.5 times, right? Because double would be about 120,000. So but yeah, it's a lot of money. But the thing is, what you just said, Melissa, it's double. You're thinking linearly.
I know.
Right? Of course you can, because human beings think linearly. When we walk, we take roughly the same number of steps, the same length step every time. We don't increase our stride exponentially as we walk. We take about the same length of stride each time. We think linearly. We use cruise control on our car.
I know. That shit scares me.
Does it really? Way better mileage, though. It's on the highway, just put it on cruise and let it go. But we like that. If you're constantly accelerating, decelerating, it goes against human nature. It almost feels too random. So we think linearly. You just demonstrated the point, Melissa. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
By saying, oh, it's still almost double. Yes, and that's linear. What it is it's 1% more growth over 90 years, which is way harder to process in your brain. And I propose you can't process in your brain. That's what part of what makes us human is we can't think that way. But that's okay. We have math to do it for us. That's what we're gonna be learning today, next Tuesday, and then the following Tuesday. Cool, cool? Gil Ian's here, thank God. All right. Hey, what's up? At break, perhaps. Yes. Now, I brought a warm-up for us to do. Here it is. This is one I was hoping to do in class with you last time, because it was the finale of the minimum wage. You're welcome. It was the finale of the minimum wage discussion we had. The minimum wage discussion. We looked at how minimum wage has done over time from 1985 to 2015. Do you remember our conclusion? Remember the meme? The meme Doc Brown and Marty McFly said, "You're telling me somebody in 1985 had more purchasing power than somebody in 2015? What did we conclude? That was a long time ago. That was Tuesday. What did we conclude? Was the meme true?
Yes.
It was kind of, wasn't it? It was kind of. Because if you look at how inflation has acted over the past 30 years, minimum wage is a little bit behind where it should be. Now here's the worst part. Minimum wage in 2015 was $7.25 an hour. I had to Google that. Guess what it is today? $7.25 an hour. It has not changed since 2009. It's not changed since 2009. It's become a political issue, which is unfortunate, because it's not political, it's economic. But of course, everything becomes political in this polarized world we live in. But, believe it or not, the Congressional Budget Office, who's in charge of such things, in 2021, said, we're going to start in 2021 incrementally raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2025. Now, you and I both know they didn't do this because minimum wage is still $7.25. But I was excited in 2021 when I read this. And I said to myself, okay, let's see if they can actually afford to do this. So what I want you to do right now is something very similar to what you did in the homework last night. Starting at $7.25 in 2021, get to $15 an hour 4 years later, and tell me what rate would have to happen every year. So it's just like the homework, except not over 90 years, over only 4 years. And Melissa, to paraphrase you, it would effectively double, wouldn't it? So what rate would it take to just about double in 4 years? Go figure it out. I'm going to hit pause on the camera and then try to remember to unpause the camera when we actually start talking about this. A lot of people are getting freaked out because of arithmetic.
It's going to be over 100%.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going to do it together. We're going to do it together right now. We're going to do it together. If the damn computer comes on. We'll see. It just came on. See if it comes on again. Now, we want to get from where to where? $7.25 to where? Thank you. We want to get $7.25 equaling $15. Now, Melissa said earlier something very, very good. That's about double. That's right. That's about double. But inflation doesn't work that way. It works percentage-wise. So that's where the sausage grinder comes in. That's where that other step comes in. The 1 plus R to how many years? And in this case, it's 4. That's what we have to solve. And you solve it the same way you solve UW in question number 5. Same way you solve economic inflation over 90 years in number 2 in your homework. Same way you solve economic inflation from 1985 to 2015 in class last time. What's the first thing you do? You divide by the 725. And what do you get when you do that? This stays 1 plus R. 2.068? Totally fine. Totally fine. Now, heads up. Heads up. When you do that division, how many decimals does it stop at 8 or does it keep going? See, that's the thing. A lot of people are getting hung up on rounding. Depending on how many digits you use right there, it's going to affect the next answer you get. You see what I'm saying? So don't get freaked out if your neighbor's getting, say, 4.05% and you're getting 4.07. It's probably due to that. depending on how many decimals you use in intermediate steps, affects what happens down the road. So don't freak out. Let's stop right here. 2.068. Is that cool? All right. Now we have to undo that. We have to undo that by taking the fourth root. You just ask Google, what is the fourth root of 2.068? I'm gonna let's get the damn computer comes back on. Fingers crossed. Was I kind enough to that dude that just came in? Did I express enough frustration, but not to the point where I was being nasty? Oh, because I got here at 6:15 to fix a problem I shouldn't have had to fix. But I'm definitely grumpy. But at the same time, it's also a problem that I put a dozen tickets in this term, and it's still not resolved. So hopefully express the correct amount of grump, but not like, okay. Thank you. I mean, I've got a whole secondary setup ready to go in case it shifts the bed again. This is what I did at 6:15 after riding up here in the rain. So I also put an email in to request 10% of the IT budget directed to my paycheck since I'm doing their job. Okay, it works. Thank God. I'm going to ask Google. What is the fourth root? Oh, so first of all, real quick. What the hell is this? I'm going to do that same math you just did. $15 an hour divided by 7.25. Okay, so that's what you get, right? Look at that number. That's nasty. 2.06. Actually, technically speaking, isn't it a 2.069? If you're going to round off to that place, wouldn't that be 2.069? Yeah. Why don't we call it that? Right? Or 2.07. I mean, that's the thing. You get to choose what you're going to round to. Just be aware that when you round, you're affecting your next answer. So don't freak out if you and your neighbor have slightly different results. Is that okay? I think that's like 90% of the issues I'm hearing are rounding issues. I don't want you to worry about rounding. I want you to worry about math. You're doing the right math. Okay. 2.069. It's just over double. Just over double. About 2.1. Okay, here we go. Fourth root of that. Fourth root of 2.069. I get 1.1993. Now we have to decide where to chop this one off. Where are we going to chop that off? I get on the apprentices anymore because I got rid of the 4. 1.199. How's that sound? 1.199. I can live with that. Need the projector again. See if it comes back on. Okay. 1.199. What's the one out front? What's the one out front? Well, it's not nothing. It's the fact that it's inflated. The one carries the original amount through over and over again. It's not deflating. I mentioned this in class last time. You probably forgot it. If we were deflating, what would that number be? It would be 0. We'd be getting smaller. This is basically 119.9%, which is inflation. It's over 100%. It's more than it used to be. But that's what this one over here cancels that one. So when Natalie said it doesn't mean anything, she's technically correct. You can ignore it because that one takes care of that. So the rate is just 0.199, which as a percentage is what? 19.9%. That's the percent we'd have to increase minimum wage every year to get to 15. Let's explore that just briefly. Okay? Just real quick. And this isn't part of the warm-up. This is not part of the record. Is that little red light blinking? I think it is. Yeah. It is good. Okay, I'm going to pull the screen down. Is that okay? Can I pull the screen down real quick? Okay. So, the first year, we're going to increase 7.25 by 1.199. So, first year, 7.25 times 1.199. So that first year, minimum wage would have to be about $8.70 an hour. $8.69 an hour, $8.70 an hour. That's the first year after CBO enacted this ruling. Then we have to increase that the next year by another 1.199. So I'm gonna play the math game. Just keep sticking it up here. That would be 2 consecutive years in a row, increasing it by 19.9%. The next year, it would be $10.42. Because we've increased it twice now. 2022, 2023, 2024, we've got to increase it again. The following year, about $12.50 an hour. And then the next year, one more increase of 19.9%. Gets us to $15 an hour. Now we're off by 2 pennies. Why are we not worried about that? Because we rounded this entire thing, right? Every step of the way we were rounding as we went. 19.9 isn't exactly right. It's a little bit lower than it should be. So there you go. You'd have to raise it about 20% a year to get the minimum wage to where the $15 an hour thing that CBO said it was. What did the CBO do in 2021? Nothing. It's still $7.25 an hour.
2022?
Nothing.
2023? Nothing.
2024? We're currently in it right now. Nothing's been done. So let's suppose, just real quick, I should have put this on the warm-up. Thank you, Melissa, for giving me this idea. What percent would they have to increase it by next year? We've already answered it, actually. We've already answered it. But in 1 year, you'd have to raise it 200% to get it to 15. See, this would be in 1 year. The 4 would just go away and become a 1. So, as usual with government, this pisses me off. As usual with government, they enact something, write it down, pass a law, whatever, and then kick it down the curb to somebody else. One of the biggest problems is representatives have 2-year terms. So they can talk a lot for 2 years and then keep talking a lot and run for re-election, which takes unfortunately, politics is now getting involved. So this is problematic. We could have done it. Now, would they have done a 20% jump every year? That's hard to say. That's hard to say if it would get funding from the federal government. But the CBO said, we're going to do it. So I don't know what happened there. That's sad. We don't know what happened. They could have done something, exactly. I think it's embarrassing. Did anybody look what the last previous increase was before 725? Minimum wage? I think it was like maybe 15, 20 years before that. It's crazy how little it goes up. How little it goes up. So, in 2015, it passed through the cusp of losing to inflation. 10 more years have passed. It's even worse now. It's even worse. Okay. Questions, comments? Kelly, what's up?
What are we exactly turning in and evolve with what we have right now? Like, there's the, like it's warm-up thing or something from yesterday that we're supposed to keep, and then there's the assignment.
Does it say warm-up on the top of that?
No.
Then it's not a warm-up.
Okay.
That was notes. You turn in things with your name on the top of them. Usually it's a warm-up every day, and then a homework from the night before. Good say, or whatever that was. Sorry. I guess that wasn't a good night. Cool? Okay, now inflation's a great place to start. Because with inflation, you start to understand why this is here. This is always here with money. This is always here with money. Whether you're saving it or borrowing. The 1, remind me what that 1 stands for again. Remind me what that 1 stands for. Yeah. That's the original amount of money you had in one of the periods. What's that little R right there standing for? That's going to be a rate, an inflationary rate. So it's going to go up each year, if it's inflated. Now, what we're going to switch gears to right now, it's not really a gear switch, it's a context switch. We're going to continue looking at a start value of money and seeing where it ends up later. But we're going to put it into a savings account now, as opposed to looking at inflation over time. The math is actually easier because it doesn't involve the roots. All you're going to do is take a chunk of money, stick it into an account, and then find out what happens down the road. Is that fair? It's the same basic mathematics. All right, I got a handout for you to walk through. We're going to walk through this together. We're also going to learn a new online math tool that speeds this up. I used to teach this using Excel or Sheets. I used to teach this using spreadsheets. But then one of my mathy friends showed me who's used Desmos before. Desmos online calculator. For this financial stuff, It is the bomb. It's so much better than spreadsheet. And that's hard for me to say, because I am like a total spreadsheet dork. I love spreadsheets. I can solve almost any problem with a spreadsheet. But, for these financial math formulas, Desmos is actually a better tool. We're gonna use it today. Does anybody need a laptop? You can run Desmos on your phone.
$30 a week for allowance?
Exactly what caught my attention,
I
Melissa.
would love for my child. to
Exactly
have
what, you got it there, Josie? Yeah, go ahead and grab that. Maybe
I
we'll
have
file
a
there.
black.
All right, all right.
My parents made me pay
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just run it on the web. It seems to be just fine. I mean, you can, maybe I'm showing my age here. I'm sick and tired of everything having an app. Like, just make a website. I don't want to install more apps on my phone that are gonna fail. Okay. So this is day 2 financial literacy. There are gonna be 4 total days of financial literacy in this class. Inflation was day 1. Starting savings accounts with a single deposit, that's day 2. Next Tuesday is repeated savings. We'll get to that next Tuesday. And then day 4, which is the last week of school after Thanksgiving, that's when we look at paying debts back. You borrow money and then you're paying debts back. So it's the opposite of saving. It's taking a chunk of money and then paying the money back till the debt is gone. But day 1, or day 2, excuse me, day 1 was inflation. Day 2, single deposit savings accounts. Okay, check this out. I read this, I heard this last year. Children average $30 a week in allowance. I had to pull a bike over. $30 a week. Now, granted, I'm 51, so with inflation, that would probably be much, much less in the 1970s when I grew up. But still, I didn't get an allowance at all back then. I worked chores to get paid for my neighbors. Cut lawns, rake leaves, things like that. Say that again?
The allowance was living there.
The what do you get for allowance? I get a bedroom. I get food in the fridge. So this caught my attention. It did. It caught my attention. So I started Googling around, and I found this. It was actually a 2019 report. A penny earned is not likely to be a penny saved for children today. And this caught my attention doubly because I'm like, oh my God, they're getting $30 a week, and then they're... A new AICPA survey found that kids are raking in an average of $30 a week in allowance. Again, I could not find a good link to that survey. Enough to save around $1,500 a year, which is true, right? If there's 52 weeks in a year, multiply 30 by 50, you get $1,500. In just a few years, a diligent saver could buy their first used car. Just mind-boggling. My first car I got when I was 23, it was a Ford Econoline straight 6 van that I went on tour with. And I drove it till it died. I mean, I biked to work, I biked to school through high school, or hitch rides with friends. These are among a few of the findings of a new telephone survey. Telephone survey, that's your first indication that something's up. Of 1,002 U.S. adults conducted by the Harris Poll on behalf of the American Society of CPAs, AICPA. So, first thing I thought of was, they called people, and certain people picked up. At home, maybe during the day. Who's going to be home during the day and picks up the phone? Maybe old people. But old people aren't likely to have kids, right? Well, first thing I started thinking of was maybe it's affluent people that are picking the phone up and answering their question. And maybe affluent people are paying $30 on average in allowance. That's one of the first things I thought of. But I stopped worrying about that. I stopped worrying about that because it's a crappy survey. It made a news bite. I clicked on their link. I made somebody 5 cents by doing that. Game over. But then I started wondering about that first sentence. A penny earned is not likely to be a penny saved. So can you find this study online real quick? What percent of the people in this study, so we've got 1,002 people in this study, right? What percent said that their children actually primarily save their allowance? So once you find this study, give me a thumbs up, and I want to wander around and tell, it's in bold. I remember being bold when I read it the first time. I'm going to change this one. I love that. Yes, it looks like if you find it, it's bolded. What year was this one? 2012. Oh, so that was actually before. It went up. It's gone up. This is 2019. So it was 780. Interesting. Oh, I love this. Here I am, just found a cool survey. You the same survey done 7 years before this one that showed it actually was lower, which actually, I guess that makes sense with inflation. It should be higher later on. I wonder if it's been done since 2019. Now you got to think about that, though. Yes. Tell me to give it back. Because they're not mine. And the way projectors are working today, we may have to use them to power the entire school. All right. Give me a thumbs up when you found the percentage of kids that primarily save. Mind-boggling. Yes, it's big fat bowl. I don't remember it being big old bowls. That's kind of good. Makes it easy to find. It makes it easy to find. Y'all, what percent of children primarily save their allowance? Only 3%. So they're getting $30. This is according to the people in the survey, 1,002 people. They're getting $30 a week on average, $1,500 a year. 97% of them aren't saving that money. One of the first things we did with Max years ago was force him, I mean, basically like a church almost, force him that whatever money he got, he had to divert 25% of it to savings accounts. Get in that habit. Garbage bill, you still have them? Maybe. Stick them on things or just save them? Oh, shit. Collecting is an interesting one. That's an interesting percentage rate. Like, what do you collect and why, and will it be worth something later? So that's related to what we're talking about today. So Josie said, I put all my money in garbage pail kids, which were all the rage back in the day. It was goof off Cabbage Patch Kids. We're totally showing our age here. I love this so much. But the idea is you can collect certain things, and certain things are collectible. The question is, how do you know what becomes collectible? And there's no good answer for that. There's no good answer for what becomes collectible. I recently inherited my late uncle's Taylor 910 acoustic guitar. I used to go back east to play music, and all Uncle Ron wanted to do was play guitar with me. I'm a drummer, but I play a little bit of guitar. So he would come over to my mom's house, and I would go back and visit 2014, 2015, 2016. He'd bring 2 Taylor guitars. He'd bring a Taylor Big Baby. I played that one. And then he brought his Taylor 910. And I remember seeing that thing on the case, and you look at it, it's got mother of pearl on it. And he would play it, and it sounded like $1 million. And I never wanted to play. He's like, "You want to play it?" I'm like, "Nope. I'm a drummer. I want to break it." He passed 3 years ago and left it to me. Which is absolutely wonderful because outside of playing that guitar with him, when I go back to visit, we talked occasionally, email back and forth, but it wasn't very. But apparently that meant a lot to him. Playing music meant a lot to him. So now I've got this guitar that I'm afraid to touch. Got humidifiers in because I live in a high desert. I don't know what the damn wood to crack. But that's valuable. But who decided that was valuable? Not me. Somebody decided it was valuable. The craftsmanship, maybe? I don't know. What are some other collectible things? Coins. Which coins become collectible? Rare ones. What makes it rare? You see, this is the challenge, right? This becomes challenging. First editions of books, yes. But which first edition and what condition? Collectibles are tricky. Collectibles are tricky because they depend. It also depends on what someone is willing to pay for it. That's the other catch. You can have a value of something, but it's only a recognized value if somebody will pay you that amount for it. Does that make sense? Like selling a house. One of my favorite studies in stats class in 243 is I took last year's, what's the real estate website? Drawing a blank. Zillow, thank you. I downloaded a few thousand for sale prices of Central Oregon homes, and then I downloaded the actual sale prices of Central Oregon homes. They're different by $100,000. What they're being lower. They're selling for about, this was a year ago, it might change now because the median home price just went up again. But people were asking, on average, $100,000 more than they were getting. And that becomes the problem with collectibles or anything that appreciates in value. Except for bank accounts. This is the best thing. Because a bank account tells you the rate up front. And it's guaranteed by the FDIC, which means if you satisfy the terms in a bank account, after a certain period of time, you will have the amount of money that you have mathematically predicted you will have. That make sense? And that's what we're going to do today. Not that there's nothing wrong with collecting things and having value of things later in life. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I have my 1969 Ludwig Superphonic snare drum. That thing I know is valuable. I've had it for 40 years of my life, when it was almost brand new. I'm gonna hang on that thing till I die. So, bank account. What we're gonna do is we're gonna look at some different bank accounts. I did a little Googling, it's about halfway down this first page. I did a little Googling and saw that you can start a savings account with a minimum of $100 with an online bank. There's a lot of these. I mean, Bankrate has dozens of them. Dozens. It's crazy. It's crazy. Again, I'm showing my age here, but I remember the birth of online banking and being freaked out by it because it didn't seem real. I wasn't going into a building to give somebody physical money. My, how times have changed. How times have changed. Let's say a child earning an allowance decides to save their allowance. One of these 3% kids decides to save their allowance money until they have $100, and then opens a savings account. And this kind of caught me off guard. This bank also has an APR, an annual percentage rate. That's fancy word for that right there. That's fancy for R. APR is a bank term, annual percentage rate. That means you're going to make that over a year. APR of 4%, which 4% was at least a percentage point higher than I thought it was going to be. And the thing is, those bank rates ebb and flow depending on how the overall economy is doing. So when inflation is high, bank rates are also very high. When inflation is low, bank rates are low. Again, this is not an economics class, just this is what I've noticed over 51 years of life. Okay. First question. Let's suppose this kid takes $100, sticks it in that bank account for 10 years. Lets it sit there for 10 years. So they took $100 in a bank account, and it sits there for 10 years, and it gets 4% every year. How much is going to be in it? Puzzle through that right now with your neighbors. $100 goes in. This is related to what we did with inflation, except I'm not telling you something that I did tell you with inflation. Please note. Right. Here's the inflation equation that we played with yesterday. We played with this all day yesterday, right? And there really are 4 unknowns. Start value, the rate you get, the number of years, and the end value. If you know 3 of those, you can find the 4th. Yesterday, we didn't know this. We had to find this. But now we do know that, don't we? We do know what it is now. You got it, Hill. Let's put this over this way a little bit. What we don't know is what this time. We don't know the end value. But we can think 10 years. That's what I'm telling you. We're going to do everything 10 years today. You can do any number of years you want, obviously. We're going to go 10 years today. Just keep the math the same.
I've done that for you.
May I offer, instead of calling it 4%, I would call it 0.04.
Because you can't just times 5 times 15.
That's right. But we learned yesterday that if we stack the 1 plus 0.04s, like I did, remember in the warm-up when I showed you what would happen if you kept inflating by that 19.9%, you just keep multiplying? That's what the exponent is doing for you. You don't have to stack anything. The equation does it for you. All you got to do is enter it into your calculator correctly. What you got, Haley? Not at all. Careful. I wish it was 4. 4%. I wish it was 4. That's 400. Shit. Yeah, 4 is 400%. Y'all, be careful. This is where arithmetic is going to bite you in the butt again. 4% is what as a decimal? 0.04, Hill, I am. Yeah. I wish you were 4, Haley. That's mafia money. That's mafia money. You got $8 trillion or something, right? Yeah, 10 years, you make $8 trillion. Get the hell out. It's because you're in the mafia. See if you live that long being in the mafia. I know. For $100. So I'm going to tell you a related story to that later once we got to the